Welcome back to episode 17 of the Jungle Podcast. I'm your host, John. You know the other host, Jeff. Jeff, welcome back for a Friday show.
Hey, buddy. Good to see you. Exciting weekend for you. Moving into a new place, and
Yeah,
then coming up to Cincy next week. So I was thinking maybe we could do a live episode where we're together for that. That might be possible.
Yeah, we could do it right outside of Paul Brown Stadium.
Right outside of Paul Brown.
We'll discuss locations.
Thus, discuss locations. Maybe get some T-shirts made in short notice. We can hand those out to some.
I'm 100% down. Yeah, I would totally do that. We'll talk about
Cool.
that.
First
time listening, you can find us on Twitter at The Jungle Pod. You can find us on any listening platform as The Jungle Podcast. And you can find us on YouTube as the Jungle Podcast too. So this week we're going to be doing we're going to get into a couple different formats on the upcoming episodes that we're talking about. But they're going to be centering around lists. So this week's or today's list is going to be top NFL running backs from 2000 to 2010. And I think in the next episode, we're going to do the same thing for receivers. And then following episodes do the same format, but for different time periods. And we're playing with some different ideas on how to get some engagement going here.
Yeah.
So if you have any ideas, please let us know.
A list just to confirm. A list. We're ranking them, right? We're giving our top 10.
Right.
So their ranks. It's a lot of fun. You see these going on Instagram all the time. Usually sparks some good debate, and we want to know what you guys think about them. We'll probably have some controversial views and people on it, but look, these are who we think, and I'm excited to go through running backs through 2000, 2010 because there's a lot of good names that I don't necessarily some people think about, and that's going to be fun.
Yeah, man. Awesome.
Yeah.
So before we hop into that, though, just some quick news and notes. The biggest piece of news that I saw this week, the Major League Baseball had their draft, and the Reds were picking 12th overall. We got a right fielder, a high school kid out of Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh area, actually, named Austin Hendrick. And the thing that's of note about him is we picked 12th. And the guy that they had projected us to pick actually went second to the Orioles.
Oh, wow.
So basically, we got a great value for this kid. And the player comparison that they put up on MLB Network when he went up was Mike Trout. Reason being, he's got the fastest bat speed in the class. It's like literally right on par with Mike Trout in the launch angle of his balls. He's got the best power in the whole draft. Little right fielder, Austin Hendrick. Can't wait to see him in a couple years in GABP.
That's super exciting. How old is he? You know?
So that was the only knock about it. He's 19, so he's a 19-year-old senior in high school. So a little bit older than some other guys in the class.
Who cares?
17, but
who cares?
Yeah, he'll hopefully
19 years old.
Yeah,
that's really exciting. Really exciting. Nice. Well, cool. It's also good to see that the MLB is moving forward. They're putting a draft together. I mean, that's a good sign to hopefully start to play soon. So I like that. My one news story was, did you see that Reggie Bush, welcome back, being reinstated to be affiliated with USC. And I kind of just thought about this. There's a bunch of different ways you could go with it, because I was almost going to do with our sexy, not sexy coming up. And it's not sexy how they took everything away from him. His Heisman Trophy, I know they gave it to who was it? Vince Young? Did he come in second that year?
No, they gave it to. I think they didn't actually give it to Vince. There just wasn't a winner that year.
There just wasn't. I think I remember saying hearing that they might have offered it to the second place person, but it's Vince, come on. Yeah. Everyone knows who won it, and just the fact that USC for these 10 years, that they were disassociated with Reggie Bush, it's just ridiculous. So I'm excited to see that finally that statute of 10 years is over. I mean, we've talked about him several times on this podcast, one of the best college football players ever. So, really excited to see him back, being associated with USC. And I thought that was a cool moment.
I wonder what his take on it is. If he's screw you, or if he's
screw it.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd feel pretty bitter if I was him.
I feel super bitter. But then it's okay, so are you mad at USC, or are you just mad at the NCAA?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it all depends on how the separation occurred.
Right.
Right. How you framed it.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just if you think of USC football, I mean, I know they've had unbelievable guys. Obviously, it's one of the best traditional schools in in football. He's at least top 3 to think about of playing there.
Yeah, him, O.J. Simpson,
Marcus Allen. I mean,
Carson Palmer, Matt
Palmer, Polamalu. But I put him in top 3. He's got to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Heisman winner.
Yeah, exactly. And national champion winner. So yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man.
I guess going over some sexy, not sexy. My sexy of the week, if you're a stand-up, we actually talked about this guy last episode. Dave Chappelle, I believe last night, put out a free special on YouTube. Did you see that?
I haven't seen it yet. I heard about it. I heard it's fantastic. I'm a huge stand-up comedian fan. And I think Dave Chappelle is probably on if you were to do a Mount Rushmore of comics, I think he'd be on it. So I got to check it out. I love that he put it out free on YouTube. There's another comic, Andrew Schultz, who does the same thing. He was just on Joe Rogan's podcast earlier this week. And I think it's becoming bigger and bigger because they get to control the content then. You know what I mean? They're not governed by Netflix or HBO or anything. I think it's pretty cool to be able to put that out. So
I just think it's
definitely
cool
a good
just
one.
giving a free one away. Like you don't need.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's cool.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome. So my sexy, I'm not sure if you saw this, and I'm actually not a big video gamer, but they put out the first look of NBA 2K21.
Yeah.
And dude, it looks like you're just watching. I mean, people have been saying it for a while, like graphics wise, like it looks like you're watching a game. This one, I legit saw. I was scrolling through my Bleacher Report app, and I saw it, and it's like Zion's like the guy that they put the ad out to.
It's the sweat. The sweat on his face.
Dude, I thought I was watching a Zion highlight. I mean, like a legit Zion highlight. It's just ridiculous how good they're making these games. It makes me want to get a system. I know you and I have talked about it. I know during the quarantine you've kind of gamed a little bit more on PlayStation, and I'm thinking about it. But it's like I want to get it just so I can see that. Right. If you can't watch basketball, put that on TV. You're not gonna be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, man. It did look amazing. All the games. Yeah. It's also an ad. I'm curious to see. Yeah, I'm sure it's gonna look better. I just feel like these have gotten like so advanced. It's like, what more can you do?
What else can you do
without like putting a virtual headset on and like actually like seeing it around you? Like, the graphics are amazing. They've been amazing though. But yeah, the ads just look even better. I was reading about like the difference and like the water effects are better. I'm like, okay.
Like, dude, like think about the minds that they're hiring now to put these games out. Guys that are able to just. You're right. You're going to be able to put on a headset and just sit, and basically you're going to think that you're in a game.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, that did look cool.
Yeah. So that was my sexy of the week. What's your not sexy?
So I probably should have led with my sexy because the not sexy is kind of weird. Not weird. It's kind of sad. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's 73. His 28-year-old son was arrested for assault with a deadly weapon. I was like, whoa. I don't know. Just like throw your life away, buddy. Like, obviously, I don't know. I honestly, I couldn't find any not sexy. I saw the story. I was like, that is not sexy. I'm just going to say,
well, look,
I'm going to mention that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's son just got indicted. Yeah.
That is a not sexy story. So yeah, I mean that's true. Hopefully everything comes out okay on that. I'm a huge Kareem Abdul-Jabbar fan. So
he's 6'7". He's 6'7", 180 pounds on his police booking. So he is definitely Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's son.
He's yeah, no kidding.
String bean.
That is a string bean, tall guy. But yeah, you're right. What are you doing as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's son that you got to have a deadly weapon on you? Stabbing someone. So. Well, you're right. That's a not sexy story. Mine kind of takes a little bit different direction. And it's funny because I was with you. I was thinking about this earlier this morning when I was having coffee and kind of like what stories aren't sexy to me. And this starts off as a really awesome, sexy story. We haven't talked about it. Mike Tyson coming back to boxing sounds super exciting. Okay. Yep. But then they started talking about how like Tyson Fury was offered the fight to fight. I don't want to see that. No. I don't want to see Tyson Fury box Mike Tyson and beat the shit out of him.
It's a waste for both.
For both of them. I'm sure Mike Tyson can swing that left and knock out just about 99% of the world, okay? But if he boxes Tyson Fury, who's arguably the best heavyweight on the planet right now, and it's a really, really good argument. I mean, he beat Deontay Wilder handily last time they fought. Dude, like, come on, Mike. How old is he? 53 years old, I think. The fact that was even floated out there, I think, is so not sexy. If you want to put together an exhibition match with Mike, put him in there for 4 rounds, see what he can do. I'm sure he can knock somebody out. You can watch Mike Tyson's first
Mike
30 fights in 4 minutes. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's why to me it's like don't even talk about that. So hopefully that was just kind of whatever, and it isn't. I know Tyson Fury said it's not going to happen, but the fact that anyone is even trying to promote that, I think is wrong.
Tyson Fury burst Deontay Wilder's eardrum in their last fight, and you don't think he'll hurt Mike Tyson, like a 55-year-old man? He'll kill him.
Not to mention Tyson Fury is 6'9", and Mike Tyson is what, 5'11", 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
Like, come on, heavyweights are different, and Mike Tyson's not the same Mike Tyson. Yeah. I looked it up. It's interesting. Mike went 37-0.
Lennox Lewis was 6'7". It's not like he never fought guys, but
oh no, I know.
That was 20 years ago.
Yeah, not when he was 53 years old. That was even longer than that. Like, I mean, Mike Tyson won the heavyweight title, I think, in 88 or 89. He started off 37-0. I mean, you can watch his first 30 fights, and it'll take you 10 minutes to watch 30 fights on YouTube because he knocked everybody out so quick. You know what I mean? Which is awesome. But don't put him in there with Tyson Fury. So that's my not sexy of the week.
I like it.
Yeah.
I should have just said packing is like my not sexy instead of like.
Yeah, because you're moving. That is not that is not sexy.
That was a better one than calling out Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So sorry about that, Adam Jabbar, Abdul-Jabbar.
Hey, look, Adam. We hope everything works out, and whoever the victim was, hope everything works out. We can leave it at that. Though.
Moving on to football. So, discussing our NFL running back rankings. So. Basically, just keep in mind, this is for the 2000s decade, so 2000 to 2010. Yeah. What we view as our top 10 running back rankings during that time. And this was a harder one than I thought to put together because I'm going through each year, like yardage-wise, and like I still don't know. Like I'm still messing with them right now. There's so many, and it's like, do you want the guy who had 3 good years or 2 good years? And it's such a fickle, position where like it changes year by year.
There's also a couple that were really, really good in the late '90s, and they came and had a couple good years in the 2000s. So it's like, that's a prime example, right? And look, I'll just give it away. He's on my list because of how good he was, and he's a Hall of Famer.
Well, let's hop right in the list because I don't have him.
Okay. Well, perfect. Let's hop in. Go ahead and start with your number 10.
I give you 10 running backs better than Marshall Faulk from 2010, starting with number 10, Tiki Barber. So Tiki Barber with the Giants, he balled out, and the thing about him, so he was, if you remember, year after year after year, I think the quarterback back then was Kerry Collins, if I'm not mistaken, on those Giants teams, and he left the league at age 30, coming off an 1,800-yard season.
Yeah.
So he's one of those rare ones that left on top. I mean, just like potential-wise, I think he's an easy name to forget, and he's one I didn't think of right away until I actually went back and looked at some of the numbers. But Tiki Barber, you made my 10 spot.
Look, man, he's higher on my list.
Really?
So, yeah, absolutely. I love Tiki Barber. He was so good with those Giants teams. Pretty much ran them until they got Brandon Jacobs and all that. But I love Tiki Barber. Left the game early, like you said. So yeah, I like that pick, and we'll talk a little bit more about him here in a little bit. So my number 10, this was actually probably the pick that I had the hardest time with was number 10 between two guys, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna stick to my guns, and I'm gonna say Ricky Williams for my number 10. At 10.
Woohoo!
Yeah. The reason why I look at it, do you have him higher?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You do? Okay. So the reason why I don't have him higher is he obviously missed the season in 2004, missed the season in 2006. I know it's, bullshit, substance abuse, all that type of stuff. I mean, now the NFL says that marijuana doesn't even get tested.
He was smoking weed. He wasn't taking steroids.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And now, look, and I love Ricky Williams. And now I don't think the NFL's even tested for marijuana. So that's why I say that's crap that he had to miss those 2 seasons. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is he did miss those 2 seasons. Early 2000s, started off super hot. I mean, 1,200 yards, 1,800 yards, 1,300 yards, missed a season. 700. He didn't have a 1,000-yard season again until 2009. So that's why, number 10. And it's funny. I thought between him and Corey Dillon, actually, for number 10.
Why Corey Dillon at number 9?
Okay, so there you go. So I think they're pretty close right there. because of who I have later on in the list, which I added late, actually knocked Corey Dillon off the list. So he would be an honorable mention for me. But I like him at number 9 if he's your number 9.
Here's why I had Corey Dillon. Those Bengals teams were really bad.
Yes.
And he was dominant. He was one of the best in the league for, the late 90s he was crushing. But then into the 2000s is when he had like his 273-yard game, setting an NFL record. And he was doing big things. Like the Bengals sucked, but he was the only bright spot. It was like him and I can't even think of the linebacker's name. Takeo Spikes and
Takeo Spikes.
The outside
I love
linebacker.
Takeo Spikes.
There was that Ahmed Brooks or something like that, number 56, outside Brian something. But like Corey Dillon was legit. And then he goes on and, he had 1,600 yards with the Patriots and won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, first
Good
year.
enough for ninth on the list. And there's other names like that I didn't put. Well, there's going to be a lot of names at the end of this to talk about that I didn't even have on here.
For sure.
But like all things considered, I thought he deserved a top 10 spot.
Look, like I said, I had to knock him off because of that. But like if you look at his stats, I mean, his through 2002, the first 3 years of 2000, 14, 13, 1,300, and he had one more 1,600-yard season, which is tough because he goes to a New England team, which usually you don't see a lot of 1,600-yard backs out of New England because they always have a couple of them back there and they spread the ball so well. So I like Corey Dillon there. My number 9 was actually Fred Taylor.
Who I don't have on my list. Again, if there's too many of these, there's too many to put in top 10 and not leave a good one off.
There's so many. He's still Jacksonville's all-time leading rusher.
Back in the day with Mark Brunell.
Back with Mark Brunell, who I also love, the lefty back there in Jacksonville. And they had some pretty, some decent teams, right?
They had a good receiver, too, number 80. I can't think of his name.
I can't remember. But
it was an exciting offense. They were really good in like Madden 2002.
Yes.
Right?
And Fred Taylor always seemed to me it's like just a really kind of like a older, like just a nitty-gritty, just tough running back, right? Yeah. And you look at his stats, 1,300, 1,500, 1,200, 1,100, 1,200.
He reminded me of Deuce Staley. Remember Deuce Staley?
Oh, I remember Deuce Staley. Yeah.
They had similar running styles. And also similar to some other names that I don't have on the list that I'll talk about later. But it seems like it's like the Eddie George, like just a big running back. The one that reminds me of it in like today's game would be running back for Jacksonville.
Leonard Fournette.
Say it again.
Leonard Fournette.
Leonard Fournette. They're all like in that mold. They're big, like 6'1", 225, 230.
Yeah.
Now you need a little bit more finesse at the position, but
and
that's what the guys at the top of this list have. But the whole running back that it kind of expired. You're
right, and I like Fred Taylor, and I was going to reading about him. He's one of 7 backs with at least 2,000 carries in the decade from 2000 to 2010, running the ball 2,000 times.
Yeah.
And 10, that's a lot of carries. So he makes my top 10. He's number 9.
I like that.
Yeah.
So for my number 8, the Batman, Amon Green.
Don't have him on the list, and I fought with it.
I remember MTV Cribs went and did I just remember they did an Amon Green one, and he was because his nickname was Batman, and he had bat symbols on everything. I wonder where his bat car is right now. It's probably impounded or
either that or he sold it. Who knows? Hopefully he still has it.
But dude, he was balling out on those teams back in the day. And he also was like he was one that could do both. They actually asked him to catch the ball quite a bit. And there was a span of like 1-2 years where I thought, he was right up there with some of the other names we're going to say. He was an elite running back. Yeah.
I fought with him. I putting him on the list. And actually, when I first put it in, he was on it. And I moved him off. If you look at it, there are so many. He was so good just total yardage from scrimmage. He had 6 seasons with 1,400 yards total. So, and he wasn't a small guy, which you don't see a lot. He was a pretty stacked up guy. Yeah. Which coming out of the backfield, being able to catch the ball and everything. Yeah, I like him. I like him there with your number 8. My number 8 is Tiki Barber, who we already talked about. I'm a big Tiki Barber fan. A lot of lists that I looked, had him super, super high. For 7 years, he averaged 122 yards a game from scrimmage. That's a really, really good stat. And like we already talked about, left the game early, it probably could have had even several more unbelievable seasons. But yeah, I like it. Him and Mark at the time, I think when he retired, him, Marcus Allen, and Marshall Faulk, the only backs to have 10,000 rushing yards and 5,000 receiving yards. He definitely belongs in the top 10. He's both our top 10s. So I like Tiki Barber there for my number 8.
Okay. So for my number 7, go to church. You need to see the Priest Holmes from the Kansas City.
I have him higher.
Here's why. If we're talking about single year, like 2002, if we're talking like 2001 and 2002 and 2003, if we're looking at that 3-year span, I can make an argument for he's the top guy in the whole list.
You're right.
The only reason I pushed him down, and I just even thought, like, do I want him higher than this? The only reason is he just didn't – he doesn't have the big enough body at work. I think he got hurt.
He hurt his spine. He had a bad spinal cord injury.
21 touchdowns and then 27 touchdowns. Oh, and then at age 31, he came in for 14 touchdowns. Like, he was on another level. I remember playing Madden at your house, like, freshman year of high school, and everyone wanted to be the Chiefs because everyone wanted to be Priest Holmes. Because
of Priest Holmes. Yeah. So, I like Priest Holmes a lot. I have him at 6. So I have him even a little bit lower. He's your number 7, right?
Right.
Yeah, he's your number 7. Those 3 years you talked about, I remember when he scored the 27, he set the record, didn't he, for the most touchdowns in a season?
Yeah, at the time. I think soon be broken by some other guys on the list, 2 of them.
Right, exactly. So broke it, but I mean, so that obviously I think earns him a spot no matter what. And if we're talking 7 and 6, you kind of splitting hairs with a lot of these guys on the list. So he's definitely up there. I love watching Priest Holmes play.
Just ceiling, he had the highest ceiling as anybody else.
Super high ceiling.
This is completely unrelated, but a Kansas City Chief just scoring a lot of touchdowns. Remember Dwayne Bowe? He got like 15 touchdowns, I think, in 2011 or 10.
Yeah.
There's something in the water in Kansas City. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's something in the water there this year because they're about to score 100 points a game with that offense.
Who was their coach? Who was the coach back then?
Was it Vermeil?
Yeah. I think you might be right.
Yeah. And Arrowhead's such an awesome stadium, So
It'd be a cool one to go to.
Oh yeah. So, well, look, I like him there. You're number 7. My number 7 is Jamal Lewis.
Higher.
You have him higher. Okay. So, and I think that's fair. I mean, he had a couple seasons. He had the 2,000-yard season, right? Remember 2003. He had the one game where he had 281 yards rushing. I think he broke Corey Dillon's single game rushing. Yeah. So he was just an absolute bruiser of the back for years.
Yep.
1,300 yards, 2,000. Well, look, 1,300 yards, 1,300 yards, 1,000 yards, 1,100, 13, 1,000, and he missed the entire 2001 season to a knee injury, and they came back and rushed for 1,300 and then 2,000. I think it's fair that you have him higher. I had him at 7. I think that the guys obviously below him just put in a little bit more body work. But now that I'm looking at the stats, it's almost like shit. Maybe he could be even up to the top 4.
You
know what I mean?
I'll tell you,
he was an absolute stud. To me. Yeah, absolute stud. Well, I already gave my number 6 with Priest Holmes. So who's your number 6?
Edgerrin James. And out of all the names on the list, he's the one I was least excited about. But he ran for like 13,000 yards in the decade. So I'm like, how can I, with good faith, not put him at least in the top 6? I don't know. It's just like, I get he was rookie of the year. He came in from the U, and he just tore it up. But he also had Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison and
Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark.
That was such a good offense. And it's just not fair to judge him that way and make that a knock against him. But at the same time, it's like if he was in Corey Dillon's shoes, I bet Corey Dillon was like doing better than James would have done in Cincinnati. Like he had so much help available to him, man.
Yeah, I mean you could say that, but you can also say that he have elevated all of those guys. Also, look out of this list that we're going through. I look at it. I only have 4 of these guys are for Hall of Famers.
Yeah, I haven't done that counting yet.
And Edgerrin James is one of them. So I have him higher. He's a Hall of Famer, unbelievable body of work, I think. And like you said, the amount of rush yards that he had in 10 years, I think is awesome.
13,000 yards.
So that, yeah, 13,000. Yeah, exactly. So, all right, so that's your number 6. My number 6 was Priest Holmes. My number 5, and I think you can make an argument that he could be higher as well, Sean Alexander. So
I have him higher. Who the hell are your top guys? Like, everyone you said, I keep saying I have higher. I'm keeping
well, we're going to go over it. I mean, Sean Alexander's not in the Hall of Fame. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets in at some point in time, but you look at his stats, 14 TDs, 16, 14, 16, 27, 1,300, 1,100, 1,400, 1,600, 1,800. That 5-year span was just – I remember him on, like, the old Madden games, and he was like, you couldn't even tackle him. Remember? Right. And not to mention, hey, good old Northern Kentucky boy, went to Boone County, balled out at Alabama, and obviously his body of work speaks for himself there. I think he's a Hall of Famer. I was surprised when I looked at it that he's not. So I don't know how many votes he's been getting. He's obviously eligible. He's been out of the game since 2008. So and we'll see. But, you know, I'm interested to see where you have him. So he's my number 5. You haven't given your number 5. Who's your 5?
Ricky Williams. And here's why.
Wow.
I'm talking about ceiling. Ricky's ceiling is higher than Edgerrin James' ceiling. If Ricky wasn't smoking pot to get kicked out of the league, if Ricky had just a normal approach to his career, you can't convince me in Edgerrin James' situation he wouldn't have done as good or better. Ricky Williams, when back in the day, go back to 2004, before the first suspension. You remember this? Just back in those old Dolphins uniforms with the visor and the dreads coming out. That dude was he was superhuman. He was the best running back in the game for at least 1 year. That season for sure. He had 2,000 yards.
We had 1,800 in 2002.
2002. But Ricky Williams to me is he's the cream. Like he's the top of the top. He had a weird career, but you can't talk the sense into me that he's not better than those other guys. Like he did.
But if you look at it, and he missed those 2 seasons, I know, like we said, we don't agree with why he missed those seasons, but it's like he did miss those seasons. And if you look at the stats, if you're going just on pure ceiling and pure potential, I get it. But I guess I didn't. I looked at body of work. That's why he made my top 10. But
still had 5,000-yard seasons, and he missed 2. Like the guy left a lot on the table, and he was coming off of his. Like, if he's not gone in 2004, he could have had a 2,000-yard year. Like, the way he was running year after year after year.
But he was gone. Gone.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm talking ceiling here.
All right.
I think he had the highest.
That's fine. That's fine. Ceiling, that's fine. So he's your number 5. I had him at 10, so we don't necessarily agree with that. But ceiling-wise, if we're talking about pure potential, you could have him at 1.
I loved Ricky back in the day. No, I'd have him at 5. There's 4 better. I'll tell you who
There's
they are.
4 better. Okay. Well, my 4th, and I fought with this. I added him late. We already mentioned him, but it's Marshall Faulk. And I think a lot of it, I know he had some unbelievable seasons in the late 90s, but he had a couple really good ones also in 2000, 2001. He's also a Hall of Famer. He won the Super Bowl. Pure potential, if we're going on ceiling, it's hard for you to find a running back that had a better ceiling than Marshall Faulk also. He did everything. And just pure leader, just silent killer, I feel like, back there with those Rams teams, with those Rams offenses that were just so good. So I moved him to number 4. Originally, I didn't have him on my list, but then I kept looking at it, and I was like, how do I not include Marshall Faulk here? I know you don't have him on your list.
I did initially. Initially, I had him as my 2.
Okay, so there you go. So now
when I first started this, I had him as my 2. But, I don't know. He did it too. It's just what in my mind, I labeled him more as a 90s guy, and that's why. Yeah. It's not really fair to him.
I think that's fair. I do think that's fair. But he did have some unbelievable seasons in 2000. And not to mention,
2000, he had almost 1,400 yards rushing with 18 touchdowns, and he had 830 receiving with 8 touchdowns.
Exactly. Look at his yards from scrimmage those 2 years, both over 2,100, 2000 and 2001. And then 1,400, 1,100.
He averaged 98 a game on the ground and 54 a game through the air. He's averaging 150 yards of offense a game. He's not a quarterback.
And also, not to mention, those are on those St. Louis Rams team that had more weapons than anybody. The greatest show on turf.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had to, when I finally kept looking at it, I had to put him there. My top four are all Hall of Famers. So I've been. It's hard not to argue that he is there, but I get if you think of him just as a '90s guy. So he's my number 4.
I like that. For my number 4, I had Jamal Lewis. There aren't many guys that are 5'11", 245 pounds and are like that nimble. If you look at
run like him.
Well, here's an interesting stat. Go look at his long rushes each year. The guy is breaking off 75-yard runs every year at 250 pounds.
He had 3 straight seasons of 75, 82, 75. Then he had
yeah,
which is really impressive.
And he broke the single season. He had the 2,000-yard season. And he had the most in the game. Jamal Lewis, to me, like, he's even when he went to Cleveland, like, I don't know, something must, like, I don't know if he ran out of tread or if he just got tired, but
dude, he still had a 1,300-yard season in Cleveland and another 1,000-yard season.
He was just so intimidating. Like, you knew he was like the closest thing to Jerome Bettis since Jerome Bettis.
He reminded me of Ray Lewis if Ray Lewis was playing running back.
Right.
Like but back on those teams, it was like they had Ray Lewis as linebacker and then Jamal Lewis at running back, and it was like, how the hell are you going to stop either one of these guys? So trust me, I get it. He's on my list. Obviously, I think I had him at 7. It was so intimidating to look at and to watch him run. In that game where he put up, I think it was 281 yards on the ground. I mean, that's just absurd.
He used to
I don't care who you're
destroy the Bengals. He used to run wild on the Bengals defense.
Wild. He probably loved playing the Bengals.
Yeah. And like our defense weren't that bad. He was just that good. He was the 4th best since 2000.
Yeah. All right, so we're in top 3. I like him there at your 4. I had him at 7. Our top 3, so they're not going to be the same, but I bet our top 2 are. My number 3, we already talked about him, so we don't got to beat a dead horse with it. My number 3 is Edgerrin James. We already talked about it, 13,000 yards in 10 years. He's in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, his body work speaks for himself there. So he's my number 3. Who's your number 3?
I'm a little bit biased again. I also just didn't like watching him. I don't know. I'm totally biased against him. I can't. I can't argue he doesn't belong at 3rd. I just think Sean Alexander is a better 3rd overall.
Okay.
For all the reasons you already stated. I don't have to hash it back again. Who's your number 2?
My number 2 is Curtis Martin.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. I don't have him on my list.
You don't have Curtis Martin on your list.
Curtis Martin was good for 1,000 yards for 10 years straight.
1,000? Curtis Martin was good for 1,200, 1,500, 1,000, 1,300, 1,600. And that's all just rushing. I mean, if you look at his stats and how good he was, not to mention he is also another Hall of Famer. That's at the end of his career with those 5 years in the 2000s. I mean, I think you can for sure make an argument that he could be number 1. By the time he was done, the only 3 running backs ahead of him are Emmitt Smith, Walter Payton, and Barry Sanders.
He reminds me of Frank Gore, who's not on this list either, but we could have put on this list.
No, we could. Frank would be on a list if we.
Frank Gore was balling out in 2006, man.
I know he was, but when we do 2010 through 2020, I bet you Frank Gore's on my list. He's got to be. He's top 4 all time. So Frank Gore now has passed, I think, Curtis Martin. I think Curtis is 5 now all time, rushing wise. But if your company is Emmitt Smith, Walter Payton, and Barry Sanders,
I get it.
Yeah,
he just doesn't have the wow factor for me. He never wowed me. Same with Frank Gore. That's why people don't like. That's why people hate on Frank Gore. He's never.
I get it.
There was never one single year where Curtis Martin was the guy.
I mean, that's tough to say when you rush for 1,600 yards. He is the guy.
But Jamal Lewis was busting for 2.
I get it. But Jamal Lewis isn't a Hall of Famer. Curtis Martin is.
So you're telling me that Curtis Martin at number 2 is better than my number 2?
Who's your number 2?
Peterson, AP.
What?
How are you going to tell me Adrian Peterson isn't the second best from 2000 to 2010? He just dominated immediately upon arrival in the league.
I don't, obviously I don't have Adrian Peterson on my list. He got drafted in 2007.
Yep, and he
So
went for 1,300, 1,700, 1,300, 1,400. I'm just
I get that.
12 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns, 18 touchdowns. He was just dominating. He led the league his first 2 years, 2007 and 2008 in the NFL. He led average yards a game from his position. The next year, he led touchdowns from his position. 4 really good years, and I know like he's more of a 2010 to 2020 back, but just like you included Marshall Faulk, this is my Marshall Faulk just flipped on the decade.
All right, that's fair. That is very fair. You're talking about a guy who obviously will be in the Hall of Fame. Adrian Peterson's a Hall of Fame. First ballot Hall of Fame. All right, so look, I like that. I'll be honest, I didn't even think about AP.
That's my point. There's so many. There's so many ways you can take it.
I think just because I probably thought that he actually came in around 2008, 2009. So you're right. See him coming in 2007, 1,300 yards as a rookie.
If he hadn't had 4 years in the decade, I would have been like, okay, but he did.
He did. You're right. He did, and they were all over 1,200 yards. In fact, his 1,200-yard season was 1,298. So let's go ahead and call it 1,300. Let's go ahead and say, he had at least 1,300 yards in 4 straight years. That's very fair. I didn't even think about it. I really like that pick. But if you're going to look at from 2000 to 2010, I'm still going to stick by my gun to say Curtis Martin belongs there at number 2. I'm going to go ahead and assume that both of our number ones were LaDainian Thompson.
Of course, LT, the GOAT.
Yeah, I don't think it's. Yeah, I think you can make an argument that he's the best running back of all time.
He's in the conversation. No,
yes,
on this list is in the conversation. What LaDainian Tomlinson did,
correct,
year after year after year,
correct.
I haven't seen anything similar to it. I guess the closest I've seen was AP's run, but LaDainian was just like AP's more of a running back. LT was like Marshall Faulk. LT
but
was
better.
like
Marshall Faulk 2.0.
Dude, he's better than Zeke. He's better than.
Oh yeah.
We haven't seen what Saquon's doing, but he's better than all these guys. He was one of those like every 20, 30 year talents.
Yes.
He did it for a long time at a high level.
Yes.
And the cool factor was there with the black visor.
Yes,
like,
the all black visor and the Charger unis.
Number 21, like.
Yep.
He's the greatest, man. He was the greatest.
And look,
people don't talk about him, and you never see him on TV, really. He's on NFL Network once in a while.
But I feel like he was kind of a quiet winner, right? He did it, and it just did it so well. Look, obviously, both of our number ones. He was the first name I put on the list.
Here's how good LaDainian Tomlinson is. That fact that we both call him LT, and we know that we're not talking about Lawrence Taylor.
Exactly. That's a really good point because I think we both talked about it. If you ask me who I think the best football player of all time is, it's Lawrence Taylor, who is the original LT.
Agreed.
But when you say LT, you also know you're talking about LaDainian Thompson.
If you're talking about offense, it's not even a question of like, oh, Jamean. No, LT.
No, LT, yeah. LaDainian Thompson. And I remember playing Madden with him on those Charger teams, and you could run him out of a sweep, and he literally couldn't be tackled.
And he could catch.
And that was like him in real life. He could catch the ball. He was so good. I love LaDainian Thompson. Just so good.
He had double-digit touchdowns the whole decade. From 2001 to 2009, he scored at least 10 every year. He also that last one in 2009, he only played 14 games, and he still did it.
And he still had 12. And not to mention, in 2006, he broke Freese Holmes' record, or Son Alexander's record, with 28.
And led the league in rushing, like generational talent.
And you look, actually, so what he had actually ended up having 31 total touchdowns that year because he had 3 receivers.
Yeah.
With only – and then look at that. Only 2 fumbles, too. I mean, he took care of the ball. I mean, just an absolute stud. I loved watching LaDainian Thompson play. I wish we had running backs like him nowadays. But, look, I guess you're right. Saquon's probably the closest.
And there's a lot of big names. Like, no one said Eddie George. Remember him, 2000, 2001 with his Titans team? No one said Clinton Portis. That
was the one that was like the biggest kind of honorable mention for me.
He deserves it. He was just never that fun to watch. Maybe it's because the team he was on. I don't know.
Look, there's a couple you could say. Think about Warwick Dunn, Steven Jackson, Westbrook, McGahee, Deuce McAllister. There's a lot of really, really good running backs in that time. really good ones that we
Steven
didn't even
Jackson,
mention.
who the Bengals took Chris Perry instead of Steven Jackson in the 2003 NFL draft. I'll never forget that. I remember exactly where I was. I was outraged at the time. And
And Steven Jackson had an extremely good, quiet career.
You haven't mentioned Chris Perry's name.
No, are you going to?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to. You know, so that's a fun list because there's so many good names. I'm excited to do 2010 through 2020, and then also with wide receivers, I think is what I'm most excited about.
Yeah,
that's what we should do next. 2010 wide receivers, and then running backs, and then we'll compare them all.
That's what we'll come back with on Monday or Tuesday. Maybe a little Ocho Cinco TO. Get your popcorn ready. Coming at you.
Future Hall of Fame jacket. Throw it on.
That's right. But yeah, man.
Well,
that's
good,
pretty
buddy.
much all I have. Anything else for you?
That's it. I hope you enjoy the weekend. I hope the move goes well, and we'll actually see you in person next week. So looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. And if you're still listening, we'll post this on Twitter. Go ahead and vote on the poll. Let us know who you think's list is better.
Awesome, man.
All right. See you, buddy.
See ya.